All right, folks, welcome in. This is Rams Daily. I am Jake Ellenbogen here every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time over on Bleacher Report. And as always, special shout out to Bleacher Report for having me. Today, we're talking about the Rams OTAs. And let's be just full disclosure here. I only have what the Rams have put out there. So I'm just going to give my thoughts on what they've put out there. Shout out to, of course, Stu Jackson, who does a great job over at therams.com for putting this stuff out there. We could start off with the first 10 observations from the day one. So this happened a bit ago. I was unable to make the first live stream. It didn't happen last week. I was supposed to do it, but unfortunately, I was attacked by Yellow Jackets. True story, by the way. So yeah, that sucked. But all right, and of course, my internet was out. So those two things don't mesh well. But talking about it now, the 10 observations that I missed last week from Stu Jackson, we had Nakua, being excused from practice. He had a family trip, so he was not there. Kyron Williams was present at OTAs. Now, this is a big deal because, you do have a contractual, negotiation there going on. And I'm not saying everybody does it, and I would honestly be shocked if Kyron didn't show up at OTAs. But quite often you do see guys hold out of camp, OTAs, so forth. So Kyron did not do that. Of course, OTAs aren't, necessarily mandatory either. So if he held out, like, okay, but he's not, and he's there, and I like seeing that. Um, Also mentioned, there was an extended look at the Stafford Adams connection, which they're already on great terms, as good as you could be, with not really playing with each other that much. The tempo, the body control, Stu Jackson points out. And basically, without Nakua, Devontae was the de facto number one receiver. So he did get the opportunities to have that with Stafford. In addition to that, there was a mix that they were going with, which I actually like this. Some people might not, but I do. It's called a competitive mix. And Stu Jackson points out that, the first OTAs, they had the projected first team offense versus the projected first team defense, and then the first team offense against the second team defense. And they kind of rotated. So I like that. It gives them different looks. Guys have different tendencies and what have you. So it really kind of keeps you on your toes. So I really do like that. I like that they had that. I think it spices up the practice, makes it better. The play of the day, according to Stu, last OTAs, and we'll get into yesterday's, but we'll talk about last OTAs. Stafford had a deep touchdown pass over the middle to Tutu Atwell. That was the big play of the day. The second big play of the day was in Nakua's absence, meant more opportunities for second year receiver Jordan Whittington on Wednesday. Of course, not this Wednesday, but previous. His best catch of the day was a leaping two-handed grab on a corner route toward the sideline. So again, we're not getting a ton of opportunities here to see what's going on. I'm not there. So I'm telling you what is out there, and I'm giving you my spin on, essentially what I'm looking at here. Really liked seeing, and apparently it happened again, and we'll get into OTA day 2. But OTA day 1, there was a lot of really good reporting coming about Emmanuel Forbes. He didn't see a lot of action last year because, he was essentially claimed late in the season, didn't really have, a handle of the defense, didn't play until week 18. He got 52 defensive snaps that game, but he didn't really get an opportunity. And, McVay said he thought, did some really good stuff when he was talking about in the game against Seattle week 18. So he picked off Jimmy Garoppolo on a pass that was intended for Xavier Smith on an out-breaking route near the sideline, according to Stu Jackson here. And apparently I'll get into it, soon, but he was also good in OTA number 2. Sean Jolly had a interception on Matthew Stafford, made a big-time play. So Jolly and Forbes have looked really good. And, McVay feels really good about the group and the development. And then you had Darion Kendrick participating, which is huge because he missed all of last year with a torn ACL that he had in the first week of camp. And then, of course, JJ Redick was the special guest of last week, showed up and, was able to take in practice the Lakers head coach. So That is what you missed. If you even missed it, that's what we missed last week that I was going to touch on. This week, it's going to be a little bit more detailed, obviously, because it's the second week, right? So here's the thing. The team drill mixing up, they did the same thing according to Stu Jackson yesterday. We're live on a Wednesday. So yesterday on Tuesday, they had this. And of course, the observations came out today from Stu Jackson. So, or yesterday from Stu Jackson. So, yeah, the context here, same thing, rotation from the first team offense versus the second team defense, second team offense versus the first team defense. Iron sharpens iron. And so when you get a second team offense going up against the first team defense, well, that's a little bit of an adjustment to make, right? But again, I talk about all the time when you have different tendencies and you practice against the same players, you can kind of pick on those tendencies. So it spices things up and gives a more realistic approach. Stafford isn't going to go up against a defense that has the same exact look every time, that has the same exact tendencies every time, right? He's going to see different defenses. So it prepares him, but it also prepares Jimmy Garoppolo because if he comes in and, he's starting, well, he's going up against the number one defense. It's that simple. He's not going up against the backups during the season. So it's great for that. Love that. Atwell, once again, really showed out. According to Stu Jackson here, had a deep touchdown for Matthew Stafford. And then he also helped in the short and intermediate game as well. So he caught 4 passes in OTAs. Forbes continues to shine. A pass breakup early in team drills on Jimmy Garoppolo. The pass was intended for Mario Williams, and it drew praise from Coach McVay afterwards. So he's really impressed this spring. Of course, it's super early. I mean, we're talking OTAs. We're not talking training camp. We're not talking preseason, but it is good to see. And I did see that Forbes put on some weight, and it might not look like much, but when you think about it, it definitely is. He was very skinny, and now he put on some weight. We're going to see if it matters, but I have a feeling if you already wrote off Forbes, you did it too quickly. I would not sleep on this guy. Wouldn't be surprised if he carved out a serious role in this defense. Really versatile. And the big thing about Forbes and why he was my number one cornerback coming out of that draft is precisely his ability to break games open. That, when you look at the turnover ability, the takeaway ability, this is a guy that can jump any route. Really good natural hands like a receiver. This is a guy I trust. If he gets going, he gets the speed of the game down. He's comfortable in this defense. He's going to be somebody that, he's got 7 interception a season potential if he figures it out, right? So I'm excited about him. The length is there. So yeah, that's what you get with Forbes. And then Stafford was sharp. Biggest example, he threaded the needle between multiple defenders for the completion for Atwell, according to Stu Jackson. And then later on, he made a pinpoint throw to wide receiver Britton Covey in team drills. I've been seeing Covey's name like as a receiver, so I wouldn't rule him out. This guy has a chance to do something on this team. He's definitely going to be the returner, I think. Play of the day, according to Stu Jackson, was Stafford connecting with rookie second-round pick Terrance Ferguson on a back shoulder throw, corner in the end zone for a touchdown. That was during the Mamba period. So they call them the Mamba moments. Sean McVay's mentioned this before, essentially those 2-minute drills. So that was a big deal there. And then play of the day, part 2, misconnecting with running back Kyron Williams on a potential touchdown. Stafford zipped the ball through a window over the middle to Tyler Higbee for a touchdown the very next play in the same Mamba period. So good stuff there. Almost is what Stu Jackson has here. Number 7, veteran cornerback Akella Witherspoon nearly came up with an interception on the very first play of team drills when Garoppolo's pass went through wide receiver Britton Covey's hands, almost into his. And then almost part 2 was Forbes was also active in the Mamba period, nearly picking off a juggled pass. Braden Fisk is an active participant. He's been awesome, according to Chris Shula. He's gotten out there on the grass, taking a few reps these last few days. He just looks like himself. That is great news because I'll tell you right now, when it comes to Braden Fisk, this is somebody that had a pretty damning injury, if you will, to end his season in the last game of the season. So it's not always a common thing where you get hurt in the playoffs and you're able to come back like it's no big deal. He put in a lot of work to get to this point, a lot of conditioning, a lot of rehab. So that's a really good sign. It's not that I'm shocked because that's who Braden Fisk is. He's a hardworking guy. Obviously, these are the type of guys the Rams draft. They get a guy who, originally was at Western Michigan, I believe, and he was there for years, and then he transfers to Florida State. And Sean McVay and Les Snead have both mentioned that as like they see it as kind of promoting themselves, taking on bigger roles, not just dominating against small competition, but willing to be like, hey, I want to take on the best of the best. And that little competitive nature and just the overall work ethic, it shines through. And I think that's what, you could say there with Fisk. And then another special guest in attendance was a friend of mine. He's been on my show before, Andrew Whitworth. He was on hand, giving some pointers to the offensive lineman, watching practice from the sidelines. So good to see that. Another thing here that wasn't mentioned by Stu, but I've been seeing kind of out there in the Rams sphere was it's very interesting. It was Stetson Bennett. It was a comment by essentially by Mike LaFleur on Stetson Bennett. And I found it really intriguing because it's not like you're going to get me to buy in that Stetson Bennett is the quarterback of the future and all of that. Um, you know, you're not going to get me to buy in like that. But I will tell you that I think there is a chance here if Stetson can carve out some sort of role. The original vision for him was being the backup quarterback, like being a franchise backup. They never looked at him like he would start, but they looked at him as he could be a backup. And the way I see it is this: I'm not flip flopping on Stetson Bennett. I don't really think he's going to crack it, but if he does, and that's a big if, it allows the Rams to have some flexibility where if they trust him enough, they don't have to bid against themselves because Jimmy Garoppolo is expensive. He is. He is. Like it was 8 million, 11 million. It's up there. It's an expensive deal for a backup quarterback. It's understandable, in a year where you're going all in to win a Super Bowl. And I hate all in, but win now, whatever you want to call it. Stafford's 37. It makes sense, right? But when you have that next quarterback and you keep Stetson around, I think that does make sense because then you don't want to pay Garoppolo all that money. And that's money that could go to a player that will actually start for you potentially. So think about that. So I'm not like all in on Stetson Bennett. Let's get one thing straight here. But a ton of growth is a really interesting way to describe Stetson Bennett. And that is exactly how Mike LaFleur describes Stetson Bennett. Shout out to Cam De Silva over on Rams Wire pointing this out. Quote, a ton of growth, particularly from 2 years ago, LaFleur said, of what he's seen from Bennett. Quote, a lot of credit to him working on what he needed to work on to get himself into this situation, but a ton of credit that Dave Rigoni, too, I'll say even Jimmy and Matthew, I think they've done a great job of putting arm around him, just putting arm around him, mentoring him. What awesome two quarterbacks to learn from that have won a crap ton of games in this league. Proud would be the wrong word, but for a lack of a better term, proud of where he's at, and he's just continuing to go. When asked if Bennett is, quote, ready to do what he needs to do, LaFleur pointed to the fact that he just has to continue playing football, participating in practice as his next opportunity in the preseason approaches. This is the biggest preseason that Stetson Bennett is ever going to go through. This is going to decide whether or not he can stick in the NFL or not. But this is good stuff. Again, I'm not in on him. I'm not really out on him, but I'm not really in on him. I'm just kind of floating around there. He's not going to be picked up if you cut him. He's just not. I don't believe that. So this is a practice squad guy that you can keep. And I see it as, let's just see what happens, because he did show something early on in his first preseason, kind of fell off the wagon a little bit, the rest of the preseason. And then this past preseason, he didn't look very good. But Michael LaFleur isn't a BS type of guy. Like, I'm not saying that there's no gamesmanship going here, but I'm not also seeing like, yeah, he's clearly just, you know, just talking him up and he's not high on him at all. Like, I don't know about that. I feel like there's some truth to this. So it'll be interesting with Stetson Bennett. From what I've heard through the grapevine is that Terrance Ferguson is going to have a significant role in this offense. Already looks really natural catching the football. Again, it's early, but that's what I've heard. And then I also heard, Kyron Williams looks more explosive this year. I know he did speed training in the offseason. Hard to gauge, that ball security because, well, it's it's OTAs, but they feel good about him. They really feel good about a lot of the guys they drafted, though. I would not be surprised if most of the guys they drafted have significant roles on this team. I mean, I'm talking Ferguson's a no-brainer. Stewart's a no-brainer. He's going to have a significant role. Doesn't have to start, though. He does not have to start. He could be playing 35 to 40% of snaps and, be used in that cheetah package like a Michael Hoyt was, and that's still a significant role. And you have those two guys. And then, of course, we'll see how things go because it is crowded in that running back room. But when you look at him, you can definitely see that Jarquez Hunter has traits that other guys in this running back room simply do not have. Then you have a Konate Mumfield, who is kind of a more experienced wide receiver coming out of college than some of the other wide receivers. And there, you could see him, making an impact. And Ty Hamilton could really carve out a role, in this, defensive line rotation. So, I mean, there are plenty of guys. There are guys I missed, of course, but really like UDFAs as well. You talk about a Sean Dolak, you talk about, of course, Chris Paul Jr. from the draft. I expect him to have a significant role. So this is why going quality over quantity, although I do believe both can exist, making sure you secured quality was really the smart move from the Rams perspective. And I am really excited. I'm not going to lie. I'm very excited to see these guys in action. And I think Terrance Ferguson could be in for a huge year, depending on how they use him. And I also have to say, I'll wrap it up with this. There are people out there, they might not say it, they might not make it clear, but there are people out there expecting Davante Adams to have a decent season, not great, and they're going to act like he's fallen off, he's lost a step. I will say this now. If Davante Adams has more yards and more touchdowns and more receptions than Puka Nacua, I won't be surprised in the slightest. It's nothing against Nacua. I think he might even be a better receiver than Davante Adams when it's all said and done. But right now, Davante Adams is teaching Nacua. Davante Adams and Matthew Stafford are two nuanced, attention to detail type of guys that really make sure the finer things are solved before they get on a football field. And I just think the attention to detail that Davante has, I don't think Puka quite has that yet. Puka's just having fun out there. He's playing the game the way he plays it. He's going to eventually mold into more of a conscientious football player. And I think he still is very to that point, but not on the level of a veteran like Davante Adams, one of the greatest receivers we've ever seen. Davante Adams is going to have an absolute dominant season if he stays healthy. Like, I'm talking 14 touchdowns, or probably 14 touchdowns, probably like 1,200 to 1,400 yards and 14 to 18 touchdowns. Think about this. Stafford only threw what, 20 something last year? He threw 41 in 2021. He hasn't really done anything close to that since. The yards have been down. I'm telling you, a big reason was because Cooper Kupp, as much as we love him, he was not the Cooper Kupp that helped win them the Super Bowl. He wasn't even the Cooper Kupp in 2022 before he got hurt. Okay, those guys, those Cooper Kupps, 2021, 2022, that right there is a top 5, top 3 receiver. But 2023, 2024, you saw a drop-off in performance. Still a good player. Like, he's still probably going to have a good season with Seattle. Wouldn't be shocked if he had 1,000 yards, but he's not winning the same way. You are going to have to adjust to him. Unless he gets back to his ability to separate on the level he used to, I think you're going to have to use him in different ways. Davante Adams, there's no drop off. You go back, you look at the game against the Jaguars. You go back and you look at some of the games at the end of the season when he's just having fun with Aaron Rodgers. He knows where the ball is. Aaron Rodgers knows where he's going to be. There's just this communication, this connection. And I just expect almost day one, like when Matthew Stafford threw the touchdown, the second play of the game to Van Jefferson against the Bears in 2021, and you're like, yep, he's going to win a Super Bowl. You just knew right away. You knew first game, you knew the Rams had something special in Matthew Stafford. I mean, I said that they would win the Super Bowl when they acquired him. I had been watching him for years with Detroit, always loved Stafford. But that moment against the Bears in primetime, you knew he was different. You just knew it. You could feel it. This is different. We have not had this. I think we're going to see that same thing week one against the Houston Texans. I think Stafford and Davante Adams are going to have this ridiculous communication, and people aren't going to be ready for it. And even if they think they are, they're not. I understand he's getting up there in age, but like I said, the attention to detail, the separation, the ability to stay on his feet. I mean, this is a guy that can break tackles. He can essentially be a running back as a wide receiver downfield. So this last bit, I really wanted to point out, I really think, and I'll probably elaborate more on my YouTube channel, but I really do believe Davante Adams is going to be in for a monster season. And I understand people look at that and they're like, of course, he's a star, but I don't think people really buy that. I just don't. I don't get that vibe. I get the vibe of Davante Adams will have a good year, 1,200, maybe 6 touchdowns. No. I'm thinking like he's going to have a monster season. And the Rams last year, I saw this stat. It will not be the same this year. The Rams won 2 games all season last year where they led the entire game and never let up on the lead. Some of the best teams, 7. The Rams led 2. Why? Defense was great, but the offense kind of struggled. We don't really think of it like that, but the offense isn't scoring like it did the year they won the Super Bowl. I think everything is going to change this year, and that is why I am so excited for this season. And I think guys like Terrance Ferguson, because they're not having to be the focal point of an offense, because you have a Higbee, you have Adams, you have Puka, you have Tutu Atwell, you have Kyron. I think he's just going to flourish almost instantaneously in the passing game. That's how I feel. But those are my thoughts. If you guys enjoyed it, you can follow me at JK Bogan on all social media. You can check out my YouTube channel, Jake Ellenbogen. I cover the Rams. And that's going to do it. Appreciate Bleacher Report for having me, and I'll see you guys in the next one.